Baby Maleficent is a solid mood. That's all I'm gonna say. Hi guys, it's Leanne. How are you? How you doing? How's quarantine life treating you? Here in not so sunny Scotland, the weather is complying to keep everybody inside. Only time I've ever been pleased for that. Thank you, weather. And today's anxiety is brought to you by waiting for our grocery delivery to see how much of it isn't there. So while we're all stuck inside, I thought, let's talk about audiobooks. You can listen to audiobooks while you're making up a toilet roll ration sheet for the back of your bathroom door. You can listen to an audiobook while you figure out how to make a meal out of 5 slightly on the turn mushrooms, 1 courgette and about 5 pieces of dried pasta. You can use an audiobook to drown out the sound of your dog whining at the back door because your one walk of the day just was not long enough. Audiobooks are versatile. And I don't know about you guys, but I am struggling more and more to make my brain concentrate on written words on a page. Even though my whole body knows that the purpose of this is to transport me somewhere else, apparently my brain would just prefer to stay on the anxiety train. So let's break the bad habit, shall we? Yes. I've also decided that in this video I'm going to talk about 5 books that I almost never mention on my channel but that I love absolutely dearly, because let's have some new things, shall we? The first book that I'm going to talk about is The Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Shaffer and Annie Barrows, and if there was ever a book that was more pertinent to our current situation, I take it back. I don't think there is any other book that is more pertinent to our current situation. This one takes place in London in the 1940s in the shadow of the Second World War, when London has been absolutely decimated by the Blitz and people are trying to put themselves back together and get over the horrors that they saw in war. But don't worry, this book is not a bleak book. In fact, it is the most fluffy, uplifting, wonderful book that I have ever read. It has such a solid place in my heart because it is just so precious. This one is about Juliet, and she is an author and she is trying to find a subject for her most recent book. She is on the struggle bus with this because her first 2 books were very big successes but not about subjects that she particularly cared about. And in the middle of all of this creative humdrum, she receives a letter from a man on the island of Guernsey. This man has found her name and address written in the inside of a poetry book that she used to own, and they start to exchange letters, which takes Juliet all the way to the island of Guernsey, which was absolutely affected by the Second World War because it was occupied. And there she discovers an island life that is very different from any of her experiences in London, and she gets to know all of the wonderful individual islanders. This entire book is an epistolary novel. It is all told in letters and diary entries, and it is just getting a little bit emotional talking about it, not gonna lie. It has pretty much everything. It has the community blitz spirit that we keep talking about right now that is so important that we all pull together. But it has the aftermath of that. It has the putting ourselves together again part, and I think we could all do with a trace of that in our future. The best thing about this book, which is hilarious and heartwarming and just is that it is a cast audiobook. There's like 5 different narrators, I think, and each one of them do a couple of characters, but every single character has a complete and distinct voice. So when a letter opens, before you get to the end of that letter to the signature, you know exactly who is speaking, and that is so valuable to me in a cast audiobook. The other thing is that because this is written entirely in letters and diary entries, it really feels kind of like you're listening in on correspondence between friends. Like you're getting to be a fly on the wall for everybody's most intimate thoughts and the things that they really want to share with their loved ones during this really difficult time. This book is a love story to literature, and it's a love story to reaching out in difficult circumstances to people that you might not normally ever speak to. And I mean, ain't we all there right now? So let's say that you're not in the mood for light and fluffy, that the situation right now, that the sad and the cruel things that you're seeing right now are a little bit too much, and you need a little bit of faith that humanity can be something other than that. I would recommend to you Unfollow by Megan Phelps Roper. This is Megan's memoir of her time in the Westboro Baptist Church, which, in case you don't know, is a religious extremist church in Topeka, Kansas, which has been made very famous for their picketing of gay soldiers' funerals coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. They are, of course, involved in a whole lot of other hate speech. It is not only picketing gay men's funerals, but that is the primary thing that the media knows them for. This might initially seem like a bit of a weird choice to recommend to you guys at these times where we really need something uplifting, but that's exactly why I've chosen it. This one is narrated by Megan herself. She is literally telling you her own story, and it's very much like sitting down with a friend and listening to them tell you about their past. There is so much hope in this book that people and things can change and be different. Megan was born and brought up in the Westboro Baptist Church. She is directly related to the Phelps family, and she was in the middle of all of the movement. She was brought up believing that anybody who didn't believe in their extreme version of Christianity was going to burn in hell, and that they should be happy for that. And through the miracle that is Twitter and social media, Megan eventually in her teens began to question exactly what kinds of messages that the church was sending out, and also where their interpretations of the Bible came from. She discovered that there were other interpretations of Christianity, and she started to explore them. This book charts her realization that this is not the only way to live, to her actually leaving the church and crafting her own life and spreading a message which is that we must love each other and hold each other up at all times, and that this kind of hate speech is only destructive to ourselves. And it is so moving and so empowering. There are so many times in here where I just wanted to reach out and give her the biggest hug because she was going through the worst times in her life, but she is telling you about them so frankly and so openly that you can't help. Is this just going to be the video that I cry through? You can't help but admire her. You can't help but admire her bravery for being somebody who questions, for trying to instill in you the ability to question not just things like extremist movements like this, but also the kind of way that we speak to ourselves and the way that we accept things for ourselves, about our bodies, about our sexualities, about our gender, about the way that we live our lives, how we accept other people's judgments and make it a part of our personal hate speech that we use on ourselves. This book is just... The next book that I've got for you is also a memoir, and it's also a memoir that I think right now a lot of us might need. This is I Am by Maggie O'Farrell, and it is subtitled 17 Brushes with Death. Maggie O'Farrell has had a very, very interesting life, and in her life a lot of things, both medically and accidentally, have happened to her. She started to realise this trend in her teens, that her life kept reminding her that everything was finite. And of course, because of everything that she went through, she developed a medical anxiety that she just couldn't express. And this book is her finally sitting down and writing down a list of everything that has happened to her and explaining how all of those experiences have gone in to making her a really calm and centered person. And as someone who suffers from a lot of medical anxiety and anxiety about the fact that things are finite, this book helped me so much. I absolutely did not expect to feel like that. I expected to go in and be super triggered by everything that was in there. But Maggie's tone of narration, the way that she describes her experiences, make you feel like at once you're inside the experience with her, but you're also outside as a calm presence, watching everything that's going on and knowing that it's okay because she's still here. And that's interesting because in a book that is completely about 17 brushes with death, the overall message is consistently, it's okay, you're still here. You're going to get through this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe not the best analogy, but I'm going with it. everything is gonna work out. And I think now more than any other time that's definitely a book that we need. The other thing that I absolutely love about this one is the narrator, Daisy Donovan. Her tone is really individual. It's very sort of lilting and almost fairy tale like. It's like somebody is telling you a very unrealistic magical story, and you kind of find yourself just settling in and listening to her even when your brain is trying to do other things. I found myself just sitting down and stopping and listening to Daisy Donovan's voice because that's the kind of voice that she has. The next book that I am going to talk about is one that I almost didn't mention here because I am going to do a video that is just about audiobook series that you can jump into, and also one about my favourite audiobook narrators, and this is going to be on both of those lists, but I just couldn't hold it back because right now I think everybody could do with a little bit of Bob in their lives. This is We Are Legion by Dennis E. Taylor, which is the first book in the Bobiverse series, and I just... even sitting thinking about it now just makes me... Okay, let's see if we can get through a whole minute of talking about this book without laughing. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we will give it our best shot. This book is set just a little bit into our future when companies are offering to cryogenically freeze your remains when you die in order that at some point in the distant future you might be able to be unfrozen and brought back to life and, I don't know, become a productive member of society again. At the start of this book we follow Bob, who has just sold his company for a lot of dollar. He has paid his very small group of employees a lot of money, and they have all gone to the sci-fi convention that they have always wanted to go to. And Bob has decided that with some of this big payout he is going to sign papers to make sure that when he dies he is cryogenically frozen. And then after he does that, on his way back to the convention centre, he is hit by a bus and he dies. I know I shouldn't be laughing. I love this series. Bob then wakes up many years into the future, but Bob doesn't feel like Bob anymore, and that is because Bob's brain has been transplanted into a computer, essentially. And Bob is told that in this new world he has a mission, and his mission is to be the sole pilot of a ship being sent into space. This is narrated by Ray Porter, and Ray Porter is one of my favourite audiobook narrators in the entire world. He narrates so many of the books that I love, and he has such a range. He can do really gritty detective novels, but he can do this really dry, really sarcastic wit super well. There is a specific bit that I remember from this where Bob wakes up and he's trying to work out why his body isn't moving the way that he wants it to move, and he says, because he hasn't got the hang of speaking yet in this very animatronic voice, how much of me is Borg? And I'm like, I love this series so much, but this book gave me just disgusting amounts of joy. And if you are looking for something which is a bit silly and a bit uplifting, but also so clever and mind-boggling, because what the things that Bob has to do in order to make his ship survive as like the sole occupant is insane. So if you think that you would like that kind of ridiculous fun, this book is definitely for you. And the final book that I'm going to talk about today is getting a little bit back to my creepy thriller roots, because you guys know that that's generally where I live these days. This one is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of this. However, out of all of Gillian Flynn's novels, I think that this one is the one that has the least information about it out there. It's the one that people talk about the least. It's the one that had the slightly dodgy film adaptation that I still haven't made it all the way through because it's really bad. It's the one that nobody loves. It's the black sheep of the family, but I adore it. And I think part of the reason that I adore it is the audiobook narrator Lorelei King. Dark Places is about Libby Day, who is the sole survivor of the Kinnicky farmhouse massacre. And the fact that I remember that exact phrase in my head goes to show just how much this book sort of earwormed itself into me and really sat deep. Like, I remember the events in this book almost like I was watching a true crime documentary. I remember this book so vividly that I think I could tell you every other twist in it even now, and I read it years ago. Libby was a little girl when the massacre happened, when all of her family were killed in their farmhouse, and she escaped by running through the snow. She has been living on donations from the public, which have been coming in since she was a little girl, but now that she's not small and cute anymore, she is much less of a newsworthy item, and less people are donating, and so there is less in the fund. And she's now facing life as a 20-odd-year-old woman who has never really been in formal education, who has never had any kind of job, trying to work out what she's going to do with the rest of her life. She's then offered the opportunity to speak for what seems to her like megabucks at the time by a true crime convention who really want to interview her about the crime that happened in her childhood. But when she gets there, she discovers that they don't just want to interview her, they also think that her account was essentially a big fat lie. They think that her brother, who has been in prison for his entire adult life for the crime of killing their family, is actually innocent, and Libby's entire world starts to unravel around her. This honestly was just as gripping as Making of a Murderer or The Staircase. If you're a true crime fan, this is the fictional book for you. There is something about being dragged into Libby's account of her family which just makes you feel a little like, ugh, but you so want to keep reading. I'm so glad that I picked this one up on audiobook because Lorelei King has the perfect voice for Libby. Libby is quite an unsympathetic character, and I think if you were to read her just off the page without any kind of inflection in her speech, it might be easy to just kind of hate her, and I've seen some people say that that's the reason they didn't give this one 5 stars. But Lorelei King makes Libby seem so much more human. She lifts her off the page and she makes you sympathetic to her because you realise no matter how she struggles to fit in with society right now, once she was that little girl who saw her whole family massacred. The mystery and the twist in this just, they have stuck with me ever since listening to this the first time around, and I think I would listen to it again today if I had the time and I wasn't listening to 10 other things. So there you go. There are 5 audiobooks that I've never talked about before on my channel that you can sink your teeth into right now during this time of much needed brain breaks. This time of needing to be transported to just elsewhere. Anywhere really. Just anywhere. Anywhere where the news can't reach me. But I have toilet paper and also fresh vegetables. I have had unprecedented amounts of people ask me for more audiobook recommendations right now because everybody is working from home. So I am going to be bringing you my favourite audiobook series and my favourite audiobook narrators very, very soon. But in the meantime, if you have any recommendations for me of audiobooks, please leave those in the comments because I now work with my hands quite a lot. My very, very, very chapped hands, and audiobooks are great. And as always, if any of you guys have already read these or listened to them on audiobook, please let me know what you thought about them down in the comments, and I will speak to you all very soon. Stay well and stay safe. Oh, also don't catch that kiss. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm okay, but you know, safety first.